Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now a few weeks ago I talked about FPP Proxy with version 9 and I ran through how to configure it, and during that we found a couple of pitfalls, a couple of issues with it that we raised to the devs in the form of a support ticket. Well, the devs, true to form, have come good on that and they've updated the proxy settings as part of FPP 9.2. But it does mean that the 9.0 version that I released isn't quite right anymore, and a few people over the last couple of weeks have had issues getting it set up as a result of that. So I thought we'd better do a recap on FPP Proxy for version 9.2 to make sure that it's all nice and clear and people aren't getting tripped up by it. So without further ado, on my desk here I've got a Pi 4 ready to go. I've got a freshly baked instance of FPP 9.2 on this card. Not touched it yet, just freshly out of the oven. I've got a short Ethernet cable and a Baldrick DMX board. And last of all, I've got my mobile phone, which we're going to use for the first initial setup of FPP whilst we jump onto its tether and get it connected to the Wi-Fi. And last but not least, I have my LED flood here that is going to be run over DMX from the Baldrick DMX via the Pi, which will be on Wi-Fi, and we'll be able to drive it from there. So let's get it set up. First job is to stick the SD card in the Pi, obviously, and let's get that powered up. Here's a power cable I prepared earlier. There we go. Now I don't want to connect anything else at this point. We're just connecting power so that FPP will boot with no Ethernet connection, and it doesn't know any Wi-Fi settings yet, so it will boot and it will launch what's called a tether mode. So it will act as an access point and broadcast an FPP SSID or network Wi-Fi network ID that we can connect to on the phone. We can jump through the first basic settings of FPP. We can get it connected to my demo Wi-Fi, and then from there on we'll be able to talk to it on the laptop and get it up and running. So it should be ready for us now. So I'm going to jump onto the phone and just go for my settings and Wi-Fi. And there we are. We can see that we have an entry in the list here for FPP, and I'm going to connect to that. And the password for this is Christmas with a capital C. There we go. Now, it's actually telling me that this is an incorrect password, which I know it is correct. And I saw this earlier when I was prepping for this video. I've got a feeling there's a minor bug here in FPP. So I'm just going to try it again. Yeah, it's timing out. It's just not happy. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to power off the Pi and I'm going to restart it. Now, when I was testing earlier before I started recording, it did the same thing to me and I thought I'd made a mistake, but now it appears maybe it's not me, maybe it's it. So we'll find out. We'll just let it restart, and as soon as the green activity LED finishes flickering, we'll try it again. Okay, I think it should be ready now. So we'll just come out, I'll let it find it again. There we go, FPP. Yeah, this time it has let me in quite happily with the same password. So there's something not quite right happening there. There we are, we're now connected, so I can come out of settings and go into Safari, and I'm going to navigate to 192.168.8.1, and here we are. Here is the initial setup page so that we can get FPP configured. So I'm going to go for no password. Oh yeah. And is that going to work? There we go. It's caught up now. It gave me an error message, but it's caught up now. So that's, I've set no password for UI, the default OS password. I'm going to change my host name to FPP92. And that should all be ready to go. And FPP is now ready for a reboot. Now I'm not ready for a reboot yet, so I'm going to go into status control and network, and I'm going to tell FPP about our network. There's something not right here. Let's try that again. Okay, it didn't accept my UI password first of all for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. There we go, it's happy now, and it's let me into status control network. There we go. Okay, my Wi-Fi domain, I need to change the Wi-Fi domain because I'm in the UK, not the US. If you're not in the US, it's worth changing because it actually affects the frequencies that are used for Wi-Fi. There are slight variations across countries, so you need to make sure you got the right ones. Having said that, I'm going to change my interface to WLAN 0 because it's the wireless LAN that we're going to be configuring. It's just performed a Wi-Fi scan to see what networks are available, and when we drop down to wireless settings down here, we can see that it's found 3 different ones for me to choose from, and the one I'm actually going to go for is GMAC. So let's connect to that, and then I'm going to put in the Wi-Fi password. And check, and that is done. We just need to update the settings here to take those forward. There we are. So we can see now that we've got the green checks, so our Wi-Fi details are in, and it's time to reboot the Raspberry Pi. Yes, I do. And if we watch the power LED, it should go out. There it goes. And the Pi is rebooting. So that's us done with the mobile phone. All we needed that for was to jump onto the Pi right at the beginning, go through the initial couple of settings, and then set the Wi-Fi to one that's going to connect to our home network. The only gotcha that we're going to find is that we don't know what IP address the Pi is going to be, what IP address has been allocated by our home router. Now we've got a couple of options for that. If your home router is also acting as the DNS server, then we should be able to connect via the host name that we gave FPP, which was FPP92. And if that doesn't work, then we can use the X scanner tool in Xlights to have a look at our home network and see what devices are on there. So let's go with the browser first of all. So I'm going to open up Google. I've got Google Chrome on here, and I'm going to go for FPP92. Let's see, right, Google's immediately wandered off somewhere else, which was not helpful. So I'm going to minimize that and go for X lights, and I'm going to go for Tools, X Scanner, and there we go, it's found it already, 192.168.4.46. So I'm going to go back into Chrome, 192.168.4.46. Here we are, here is our FPP ready for configuration. Now up at the top corner here, we can see right away that we have the big orange update icon available to us. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get her right up to date. Let's go with that. This will take a few moments dependent on the number of updates that are available. Looks like we've got a few coming in here because this is this image was a couple of weeks old now since FPP 9.2 came out, so there's been a few updates come through. While it's doing that in the background, I can get my connectivity set up to my Baldrick DMX. So I've just got an Ethernet cable here, and that's going to plug in from there, straight there to straight there. Now the Raspberry Pi has what's called Auto MDIX on board, which means we don't need a crossover or anything fancy to go from a Baldrick into the Pi. We could just plug in a regular Ethernet cable and it will sort itself out. Now the only other thing I need here is power to my Baldrick board, and again I should have, there we go, one at the ready. Let's bring that in. Now I'm not going to plug the power in here yet because we haven't got the Pi ready and configured for issuing IP addresses. So I'll leave that unplugged, but I can plug in my DMX cable. There we go. Right, in the meantime my FPP upgrade has finished, so I can close that. There it goes. And I'm now ready to start setting the Pi up to act as a DHCP server to provide IP addresses to the Baldrick, and also to allow network, what's called NATing, network address translation between the Pi and the outside world, so Baldrick can get out for updates. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enable advanced user interface, which gives us the additional features we need to get this site set up. So I'm going to go for status control FPP settings. I'm going to go for UI and change the interface level to advanced. I can now go back to status control and network. Initially I want to just go back to wireless LAN 0, and down at the bottom we have advanced interface settings now, and I need to enable masquerading stroke NAT. That is going to enable internet connectivity through the Pi and on towards Baldrick. So that's needed. Update. There we are, it's those done, and now we can change the interface to Ethernet 0. We're going to tell the Pi to have a static IP address on ETH0 because it's not plugged into anything that can give it an address automatically. And I'm going to set the IP address of that to 192.168.100.1. Our net mask is absolutely fine at 255.255.255.0, but we need to take out the gateway now from this interface. The gateway is what's called a gateway of last resort, and it's where to send traffic if you don't know where else to send it. We've already got one set up on the wireless LAN side, so we don't need one on the wired side, so we can leave that blank. DNS settings for this interface, we're going to leave those on DHCP because it's going to be getting its DNS or its domain name server settings. That's how it translates xlights.org into an IP address so it can go and get it. That's using DNS. That's going to be coming in from the internet side, which is on Wi-Fi. So again, we can leave this on DHCP and use the info that's coming in from there. The only other thing that we do need is down at the bottom, and that is DHCP server. So we're going to turn that on. And that's basically telling FPP to act as a DHCP server. So it will then issue an IP to Baldrick when Baldrick starts up and goes looking for one. That's all our settings done. That's everything we need to do. So I can update that now. I don't need to set a DNS address. I'm happy with what we've got. Last thing we need to do is just to do a reboot of FPP to pick up the changes that we've made. FPP is now rebooting. We will see in a few moments that the clock will update as soon as FPP is back with us. It will keep the same IP address as that's been allocated now on the Wi-Fi, as long as we don't keep the Pi down for more than about 24 hours, it will hang on to the same IP. If you do have it turned off for a longer period, then you might find that when you reconnect it to Wi-Fi, you get a new IP and you have to go and see what it is. The solution to that is what's called a DHCP reservation, and then every time this Pi reboots and connects to the network, it will be given the same IP, and that's what I recommend. There we go, our FPP is back with us, so we can go back to status control and network, and if I scroll down to the bottom, we can see that we've got a section down here now for static leases with nothing in it at the moment, and that's because we haven't plugged Baldrick in yet. So let me give Baldrick some power. There we go, the power LED is on, and after a few moments it will connect up the network and it will go looking for an IP address. You should have done that by now, so if I refresh this page, there we go, we can see now that we have an entry for a static lease, or potentially a static lease. The Baldrick board has been given the IP address 192.168.100.103, and if we want it to always be allocated that address, we simply check the box, and I do because it makes life a lot easier. So I'll enable that and update. Yes, we still don't need to play with DNS, thank you. There we go. That bit's done, and it will probably be asking for a reboot. It does, but we don't actually need to reboot at this point. We can just keep going. So I'm going to go for status control now and proxy settings. And there is the proxy entry now for Baldrick. So we can now get through to see what's actually happening on this board. So all I need to do is to click on that link, and there we are. That has taken us straight through to the Baldrick web interface. Baldrick has been able to get out onto the interwebs because we can see that its firmware is up to date and it's pulled through the I like that logo. If it had connectivity issues getting out, then there would be a lovely orange banner in here talking about web sockets and things, and it would be grumpy. But it's all good here at the moment. The last thing I wanted to do in this video is to demonstrate that I can now talk to the Baldrick and I can light up my DMX light. So I'm going to go into enable test mode. I'm going to pick a test of choosing a DMX preset. And my DMX preset that's running is green, and lo and behold, our lamp is on green. I can change that to blue, red, or white. There we go. Or a nice dim red. Now these have all been possible because I've preset these presets. If I look at one in particular, we can see that for green, I've needed to set up channels 1 and 3 to 255. Now this lamp has 4 channels for use. It has channel 1 is 0 to 255 for the overall brightness, and then you have individual channels for red, green and blue. So I've just turned on green in this case. So there we go. That was a quick update on how to set up proxies in FPP 9.2 because there are changes since 9.0. As always, don't forget to hit the Greg Macquarie website if you're looking for help with something, because I may well have done a video on it. We've done over 60 videos this year so far and still counting, and they're all in here under the video archive section. If you found it really useful, then you could always consider buying me a coffee or maybe even subscribing on Patreon. Let's have a great show season. Take care. See you next time.